Insulin is a pancreatic hormone which regulate the blood sugar level, that means which convert the glucose into glycogen, and these glycogen stored in our muscles, in our liver and other tissues of our body. But when there is a high blood sugar level which persists for the prolonged period, and the sugar level not after taking some food but also persistent sugar level, even the fasting sugar level is also increased for a prolonged time, it means there is diabetes mellitus. So what are the symptoms of the high blood sugar level? Like frequent urination is one of the most important symptom, increased thirst and increased hunger. And if this kind of situation is left untreated, diabetes can cause many other complications. Now, what is the cause of diabetes? The diabetes is due to either the pancreas not producing enough insulin. We know that the insulin which is released from the endocrine pancreas, where the beta cells produce insulin. Insulin itself is a polypeptide hormone, and it helps in the conversion of glycogen from glucose. In any reason, if the cells of the body also not responding properly to the insulin which is produced, then also the diabetes mellitus occur. There are three main types of diabetes mellitus. Number one, so type 1 diabetes mellitus, type 2 diabetes mellitus and gestational diabetes. So next we move to these types, that what happens in the type 1, type 2 and gestational diabetes. Actually, in the type 1 diabetes mellitus, it results from the pancreas failure to produce enough insulin. This form was referred to as insulin dependent diabetes mellitus or juvenile diabetes. So the type 1 diabetes mellitus is also known as insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. So it is also known as IDDM, that is insulin dependent diabetes mellitus, and it is also known as juvenile diabetes. The another name is juvenile diabetes. So in this diabetes, the pancreas cannot produce enough amount of insulin due to the problem in the cells of the pancreas or due to the aging process. In the type 2 diabetes, it begins with the insulin resistance, a condition in which the cells fail to respond to insulin properly. Generally, this thing you should know, that any hormone, they act on their target organ, and when the hormone act, they will bound to some of the receptor present on the cell surface. So the particular receptor binds with the particular hormone, and this is called the specificity of the hormone. So in case of type 2 diabetes mellitus, the cells actually fail to respond to the insulin properly, and it may be due to the receptors which are malformed, so that the insulin cannot bind with the receptors of the cell. This form was referred as non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus or NIDDM. It is also known as adult onset diabetes. The primary cause is excessive body weight if you have, or not enough exercise if you do, then it may cause the NIDDM, that is non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. Here the receptors may be not working, and so that due to the presence of insulin, the insulin cannot work properly. And next one, the gestational diabetes. So it is the third main form, and it occurs actually in the pregnant woman without a previous history of diabetes. So this gestational diabetes is actually occur in pregnant women. Those who don't have any previous history of diabetes. So these are the major three types of the diabetes. If we compare the types, then we can say that the type 1 and type 2, mostly the type 1 occur in children and the type 2 occur in the adults, and that's why the type 1 is called juvenile diabetes and the type 2 is called adult onset diabetes. So this is the major difference. Next, the body size in case of type 1 is thin or normal, whereas in type 2 diabetes often the body weight is too much, that is maybe obese. The prevalence of the type 1 diabetes is approximately 10%, whereas the type 2 diabetes is of 90%. Next, we move to the sign and symptoms elaborately of the diabetes mellitus.